Tim first asked me to share my story about what had happened to me and my faith through it all. At first I told her that I didn't know how to share my faith. I was raised Lutheran in a northern Minnesota in a real small town, and we just nobody went forth and spread the word. Kept it to yourself. So I'm very nervous tonight. My story, I was in preparation for tonight, reliving a lot of it, and I was surprised that after all these years that it still makes me shake and cry. And I'm also feeling vulnerable sharing my faith, so here it goes. So tonight's topic is marital status. We are his bride. All I've ever wanted to be is a mom, to have a family like I grew up with, a rock-solid mom and dad, one house, one school, and have that kind of family. That's what I set out to do. So I was blessed with two beautiful sons that I prayed for and I planned for. I've also been engaged to be married 6 times. I've been married 5 times. I've been divorced 4 times. I've been an awesome stepmom 3 times over. I've moved 36 times. So God had different plans for me than I had for myself. Also a survivor of domestic violence. My multiple marriages it doesn't mean that I didn't take each marriage seriously. I was married in religious ceremonies each time. I had premarital counseling with Christian ministers. I've received many Christian marriage counseling. I took each marriage very seriously, and I was committed with pure intentions and godly guidance. With that being said, though, I do have a sense of humor about it all. I mean, who do you know that's been married for 5 times? The family joke is, always the bride, never a bridesmaid. And my family will ask, does Kay drive them crazy or does she make them crazy? So I'm here to tell you I do not make them crazy. Right, honey? So, I married defendant number 1 right after high school graduation. We moved overseas with the military, and I quickly went from being a very outgoing, very self-confident, I was a varsity cheerleader, I was National Honor Society, I was a homecoming princess, and within a year, I went to feeling like I was worthless. He started with the very subtle criticisms. Couldn't do anything right. And that's how they start. When he got me overseas to Germany and I was away from my family, my support system, that's when the attacks started. He began to isolate me there. I was 19 years old, I was far from my family and in a foreign country. He bit a chunk out of my face. He shoved food up inside me while I was asleep. He would describe how he would smother me one night while I was sleeping and cut me up into tiny pieces and scatter me all over the German countryside and tell everyone that I had run off with a German guy. He dragged me to a bonfire and tried to burn me alive. His commanding officer told me to stop trying to ruin his career. The male marriage counselor told me that we were fine and didn't need to come back. The pastor told me that God wasn't pleased that I was getting a divorce, and that in God's eyes, I would always be married to that thing. So defendant number 2 was very passive and calm. We had 2 beautiful sons. We're married for 9 years, which is why I blocked out his face, because my sons, out of respect for my kids, but that's him. Even though he was a very depressed, unstable alcoholic, I was determined to keep my family together. He was very depressed, and I'm the opposite of depressed, but I was determined. Until he kicked our littlest one in the stomach from one room to another when he was only 4. He went to their school and he took them. He called me at work and told me I would never see my children again. He held up the phone so I could hear them playing in the background. They had no idea what had just happened. The marriage counselor for this one was a male Army chaplain. He told me that men handle stress differently than women, and when he came home from a hard day at work, I should just lay there and let him relieve his stress on me. He left when the boys were 6 and 8, and he never came back. Defendant number 3 had a flashback to a repressed childhood trauma and became unstable. He began to call my youngest shit for brains, and he began to describe in crazy detail road rage incidents where he would shoot and kill people. And he would leave his loaded handgun on the kitchen table, and the kids were little at that age. I moved out, the boys, about 4 years. They were young teens, and we moved out before the violence turned to us. And defendant number 4 spit in my face, dropped my little blind Pomeranian out in the middle of the woods to punish me. And told me that he had found a home for him. I searched the woods and found him in a gully covered in wet leaves. He picked me up off the floor by my throat with one hand. Now, this was the first time that a male minister told me to save myself and leave. Thank you, Pastor Jeff. Defendant number 5 spent over 6 years tormenting me and my sons. He burned down our house. He beat me with a baseball bat one morning in my front yard when I was letting my little dog out to go to the bathroom. He torched 6 of our cars with gasoline in our driveway and at our jobs. This old Jeep was my Christmas present to my son, his first car. And then a week later, he and his teenage daughter torched it with gasoline in the middle of the night. He blew up one car with homemade bombs. I had become a good shot, and this is the handgun I kept hidden under the front seat. He walked into a mental health clinic. The latest showing of him, he walked into a mental health clinic and told the intake person that he planned to either throw acid in my face and scar me for life or make me a paraplegic. That was his goal. 1 year for Christmas, Derek, who was a teenager at the time, opened up a beautifully wrapped package with ribbons and bows and found a beautiful Christmas stocking. And inside the Christmas stocking was a mangled little body of a little kitten, a little black and white kitten. I found this note in my refrigerator. I would find notes on my bed and at my desk at work. Articles were written about us in the Charlotte Observer, where we were kept anonymous for our safety. We told anyone who would listen. We reported everything. To feel like I had some sort of control over the chaos, I started keeping detailed records of everything, reporting every attack, every violation. One police officer asked me, "What the hell did you do to piss him off?" All of these charts that I made were in just a year's time. There were page after page in just 1 year of constant attacks against me and my sons. So you might be thinking, why would anybody stay? Why would anybody put up with that? Why didn't you just leave? Most of what I've described to you happened as a result of me leaving or after I was long gone. A woman is in more danger and is more likely to be killed when she leaves. He's lost complete control at that point. So for most of our lives, it's just been me and my boys. What they were put through changed their lives. I have many regrets because I couldn't protect my children. But I must have made some right choices because we are still alive. And I'm standing under a picture of my 2 sweet guys who are very good to their mom, and they're single ladies. They have always been my biggest fans, and I've been their biggest fan. But as you can imagine, when their mom is being attacked, how hard it was for them. I spent most of my energy just making sure that they didn't retaliate. And that alone affected them, that they weren't allowed to protect me. I was all that they have. So Ryan, my oldest one, had a really hard time dealing with the evil. And I spent 10 years trying to save him from himself. A lot of trying and crying. But years ago, I ran into this kooky lady in a restroom, a ladies' room, and she let me walk out of there with my skirt tucked into my pantyhose and sashay down the hall before she told me that my skirt was tucked in my pantyhose. And God has a sense of humor. So about 2 years ago, I took Ryan to see Kim Honeycutt, and within 50 minutes of spending time with Kim, he has not had a drink, he hasn't even smoked a cigarette, and he hasn't used drugs since that meeting with Kim. He tattooed Serenity on his arm with the date that he met Kim and became sober. And because of Kim's strong faith, not only is he sober, he has a very close personal relationship with God. So at 48, God led me to the love of my life. Neither of us were looking, but God had other plans. My husband wouldn't think of calling me a name or controlling me or even raising his voice to me. He's both strong and gentle. My sons trust and respect him. Plus, he's super handsome. He's an excellent cook, and he moves over to make room for all 4 of my pets to sleep with us. And I trust him so much. The other day, I said, "Can you take a little bit off my ends?" And he cut my hair. I trust him. Throughout it all, I really believe I've had a blessed life. Rick and I are building a life and a family together now. No matter what pain that you're going through today, don't give up hope. I never gave up hope. My mom told me today, that's one thing if people say, well, she's on 5 marriages, my mom will say, my Kay never gave up. I bounced back, and throughout it all, I always felt I had a blessed life. During all of that, I just thought, God is so good to me. And I believe that. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be here today. And I thank God for that. Thank you.